A few years ago, I made a video about the Marvel book Luke Cage, City of Fire. Marvel promoted it, and I'm using that word loosely, as a tie-in for the character's 50th anniversary, and then they canceled the book. At the time, it said it was probably canceled due to low orders, since Marvel did little to actually promote it. I also mentioned that the writer Hochi Anderson and another writer David Walker implied that there was another reason, possibly due to the story content, for the cancellation. I couldn't think of what that would be because Marvel hadn't hesitated to publish anything they wanted, especially if it leaned into politics, which this book did. The book was to be about yet another police shooting of a black man and the ensuing fallout. Like I said in that video, telling that story is fine. Telling it for the 58th time is tiresome. You don't need to do your spin on it every time another one of these cases pop up. Well, it turns out there's new information about what led Marvel to cancel the book. Comic Book Resources interviewed Hochi Anderson and asked him about the miniseries. Anderson explained the situation, quote, "Marvel approached me and they were like, do you want to write a short story for us? I had just done an interview with the cartoonist Kayfabe guys, and I had asked Ed Piskor to hook me up, which he had done very graciously. So they approached me about this short story, and I came up with a Luke Cage story, 5 pages. It was essentially what would happen if the mother of George Floyd hired Luke Cage to protect Derek Chauvin, her son's murder. That was where the premise sprang from. That's actually a good idea. It's a great idea. I would love to read that. There's so much to play with there, from Cage's perspective on the cops to the community's response to how the cops will react to this hero who isn't exactly cop-friendly protecting one of their own. It's been a while since we've had a story like that, one with so much room for nuance. That sounds a hell of a lot better than the original pitch given to the media of the story being about Luke Cage investigating the death of a black man at the hand of a police officer as Wilson Fisk corrals a group of corrupt cops in response to a fallout. So, what happened? Well, Anderson turned in the pages, and Marvel came back to him and said that there was too much going on for 5 pages, and offered him a 3-issue miniseries instead. I'm not sure how that ties into the broader Reign of Fire event. It seems like Marvel just tacked on Anderson's story, but I could have that wrong. At any rate, Marvel seemed fine with the comic for a while, but then things changed. According to Anderson, as he finished writing the last issue of the Luke Cage series, Marvel started sending writing and lettering notes and asked that he include a trigger warning for the subject matter because of course they did. Anderson assumed that this was due to the opening pages featuring a cop shooting an unarmed black man. He figured that he was pushing some buttons. A week later, he found out the truth. Quote, "Long story short, they sat me down and said, we're canceling this book. We're afraid that the subject matter is going to be damaging for you. We don't want you to be attacked by right-wing nuts." Which, of course, would totally never happen, because right-wingers are known for having the most controlled, reasonable response to someone challenging their political views. He continued, quote, "I was like, fellas, I can handle myself. Let them come at me. I have no fear about that. You don't have to do this." I don't know that that's precisely what was going down. I think there were probably some other issues with their higher-ups who just said, no, this is going to affect our bottom line. We don't want the story out there. That's my suspicion. Nobody's ever come out and said that to me. Well, that seems unlikely to me. This was November 2021. Who working at Marvel would take issue with the book? Wouldn't these be the same people who signed off on the book? At the time, Marvel was doubling down on politics like they were stuck in 2017. If ever there were a time that they would publish the story, that would have been it. Anderson added, quote, "Also, this was around the time of the Kyle Rittenhouse trial and the decision that had come down, and they were really worried that there was going to be some blowback with the Kyle Rittenhouse lovers of the world or whatever, so they chose to take the cautious route. That seems more possible, but still not likely. While the Rittenhouse groupies were and remain pathological in their love for him doing what they fantasize about but are too cotton ball soft to actually do, I don't see how that would connect to this story. The George Floyd case and Rittenhouse case are 2 different circumstances. Why would Kyle's groupies get pissy about this book? Sure, someone could mention it to them and that could trigger them into spasms of right-wing tism, but I don't see that happening. So, as it stands, it's still unclear why this book got canned. It could be that Marvel just chickened out. It could also be that the book wasn't that good. I'm not familiar with Anderson's work, so I can't speak to his writing. It would appear, though, that Anderson doesn't know why this happened, but it did make him decide to avoid writing real-world inspired stories for Marvel. Now he'll only write the typical villain of the week stories for him. He also said that he has plans to repurpose the Luke Cage story for his own project, which he might want to talk about with Marvel just to make sure that whatever contract he signed didn't give them the sole rights to that particular story. Obviously, they can't stop him from using the general concept, but it is Marvel, which is now owned by Disney, and both of them are very lawsuit happy. I would check that contract before going any further, just to be safe. If Anderson does publish his version, I'd love to check it out. Sounds like a really great idea. It's the kind of story we used to get when everyone wasn't so hell-bent on putting the message before the narrative. But what do I know? I'm just some guy.